Hello and welcome to this mini lecture all about motivation. As you're getting on into the Leading Self module of this personal management course, I hope that you're gaining a deeper understanding of who you are and thereby how you interact with the world, and how you're able to better lead self and lead others around you. So let's delve into the world of motivation this week. Have you ever wondered or considered or questioned to yourself, what is motivation? More than that, what is it that motivates you? And especially, what is it that motivates those around you? As I've said again and again, by knowing thyself and knowing more about who you are, not only are you able to better lead yourself, but better able to lead those around you. So let's start by looking at what is motivation. Motivation is defined as the process that accounts for an individual's intensity, direction, and persistence of effort towards attaining a goal. You can see it's made up of 3 parts there. So let's begin by defining each of those elements so we have a deeper understanding of what motivation is. Intensity describes how a person tries, or how hard a person tries. When most of us talk about motivation, this is often what many of us believe motivation is. It's important to remember that this is only one aspect of what motivation actually entails. The second part of motivation is the direction. The direction of the energy and effort needs to be channeled in the right way for an individual or within an organizational setting. If we have a goal and we're moving in a certain way, but not in the right direction, we're never going to achieve our goal. And the third part of motivation is defined as persistence. So how long is a person able to maintain the effort with which that they're trying to achieve their goal? Motivated individuals tend to take or have the ability to last long enough to achieve their goal. And motivation is thus defined of having these 3 elements together that allow the ability to be motivated or not. Within this module then, we look at the content approach to the theories of motivation. The content approach is based on motives, traits, and motivation orientations. This follows on from looking at our personality types and helping you realize that understanding who we are, what our personality is, what our different types are, also impact what is our motivation that we may be drawn to. There are various other ways that we look at what motivates us, and this can be done by looking at motives that are on a universal level. Within this category, we have something called needs fulfillment. Within this, we'll be looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, developed in the 1940s, that some of you may have come across, as it's one of the most widely recognized tools of motivation used globally. The second theory we'll be looking at is the self-determination theory, which looks at the difference of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and how this impacts an individual. The next set of motivation we will look at is called the Adams equity theory, developed in the 1960s, and this is based on the justive motives, with the underlying assumption that workers strive for fair balance between inputs and outputs. The last theory that we'll be looking in within this module is based on trait-based motives. This looks at the inter-individual differences within a person and their motives, and to understand this, we'll be looking at McClelland's theory of needs. It is important before we begin then that we have a deeper understanding of what is the difference between intrinsic versus extrinsic factors. If we look at the little image of 2 young girls playing chess there, we see that there's one girl that's smiling and really enjoying the game, while we see another girl who seems to be very stressed and very focused. This shows a quick overview and difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. The girl who is happy or playing just for fun is motivated to perform the activity for the sake of playing and for personal rewards, rather than the girl on the right who's playing to perform an activity to earn a reward or to avoid a punishment. if we look there more deeply, we see that intrinsic motivation tends to be things that drive us more internally, things like purpose, interest, mastery, creativity, and curiosity, whereas extrinsic motivation can be more external factors, such as looking at our grades and how well we do, earning a reward or a point or money, and looking at our careers in terms of promotions, pay rises, and bonuses. So what drives us as individuals on a universal level? As I said, we will begin by looking at the needs fulfillment of motivational theories. We begin by looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Many of you may have come across this. It's very widely known and used, as I said, and is one of the earliest theories of motivational theories that exist out there. Even though some of the concepts could be limited within today's world, it is still very widely used by management, especially in terms of the terminology that many people out there use. Maslow's hierarchy is based on looking at a hierarchy of needs with the assumption that the needs at the bottom of the pyramid have to first be met before you can move to the upper levels. If we look at the first two levels, then this looks at what is our basic needs. Things like food, sleep, water, our biological and physiological needs. We then move up to see what is our security, health, and finance needs in terms of safety. The next level then looks at our psychological needs. What is it that we need to feel like we belong? Those social needs that allow us to feel motivated and fulfilled. We then move on to our esteem needs. How do we want to be treated in terms of respect, status, and recognition? And the top rung of Maslow's hierarchy of needs looks at self-fulfillment or self-actualization needs. This means or looks at meeting one's full potential in life. And this can be different, and usually is different for every different person out there. We assume within this module that the bottom levels have to first be met before we can move to the top. As an individual then, if you're trying to help yourself or others, people would look at where they are and try to work on that level and then start moving up towards the topper level of the pyramids. This, however, was turned upside down with COVID, as we can see in the next slide to come. Before COVID, it was very clear that we needed to meet the bottom levels before we rose to the top levels. COVID really turned that around when people needed their ability to have their self-actualization needs met. This became really frustrating for people and their levels of motivation due to the limited infrastructure and communication channels and how these were affected. More so, things that needed to be at the top rung, that are usually our most overarching needs, were really shaken during COVID, and people had high levels of anxiety, stress, and job security, unstable environments, and this looked at motivation and managers needing to really be really cognizant of the needs of their team, the needs of themselves, and how to manage this better. The next theory under the needs fulfillment category is called the self-determination theory. This is based on the assumption that human beings have three basic needs. The first of these needs are competence, and this looks at the fact that people feel this need to gain mastery and control over their own lives, which becomes essential to their well-being. The next part of the self-determination theory looks at autonomy. People need to feel in control of their own lives and behaviors as well as their goals, and they need to have the need to feel as if they have a choice about their lives and themselves. The last element of this looks at relatedness. People feel that they need to have a sense of belonging and connection with other people, and a feeling to need to be cared for and the ability to care for others. If we look deeper into these theories, we see that by having certain levels of these three needs met, it allows employees to feel motivated and engaged. The more motivated and engaged our staff or employees or team are, the more that we tend to have enhanced performance and well-being. It's important then to realize that work environments that support self-determination tend to have enhanced outcomes in terms of performance and well-being, and this is more than just these two things, but allows people to feel a sense of having satisfaction, commitment, and retention within organizations met. Moving on then, as we said, the universal motives also falls under the ability for people to have a need for justice met. A theory that really explains this really well is Adams' equity theory. Adams' equity theory is based on the assumption that individuals and employees have a universal desire for fairness. Adams' equity theory thus emphasizes looking at fair outcomes. This is done by looking at a series of inputs and outputs and comparing this to someone within the marketplace. We refer to this as inputs of what is it that I put into my job. Is the time, effort, loyalty, tolerance, and all that heart and soul that I'm putting into my team or my organization, is this fair to me as a person of what I'm getting out? To me, I may be looking at pay or benefits or perks, or maybe something like reputation or praise or enjoyment is something that means a lot to me. So is what I'm getting out versus or worth the value of what I'm putting in, and is that fair to me as a person? If we look at this then, the perceptions of an employee's fairness can predict whether a person is happy or not. It can lead to behavior that's tolerable or not. It can lead to health implication, as well as attitude with how they refer to people within a team or organization or within themselves. If people feel that they are being unfairly treated or that there are perceived imbalances, this can create tension within employees or within a team setting and allow someone to have their behavior changed in a positive or a negative way. People always try to get back to the scale of balance to try to make sure that what they put in versus what they get out is fair to them. If I, for instance, feel like I'm putting in too much of time and effort, but I'm not getting paid out equitably, I may decide to start slacking off. And you can possibly see this within your team settings. And as I'm talking to you about these different theories, I really encourage you to think of these things within your own life, within your personal life, within your business life, and within your team setting that you're currently experiencing through this module. If someone feels that they are not being treated fairly, or there is this perception of inequity, there are various tools of what a person can do. If I feel like I'm not getting enough flexibility within my job, I can look at what can I do that is of importance to me, so that what I'm putting in versus what I'm getting out is fair. I can thus change my inputs or change my outputs, as number 1 or number 2 says. As I say again and again, knowing thyself allows us to lead not just ourselves better, but others around us as well. If we feel a sense of unfairness, we can then change our perceptions of self or change our perceptions of others around us. Another thing that we can do to try to get to a fair sense of balance is choosing a different referent person. Maybe I'm comparing someone, myself to someone who's at a higher level than me within an organizational setting, or someone who's got a complete background of me within a team setting. And by changing this person, it could create that sense of balance and fairness again. The last resort, which is not always available to us, is then looking at leaving the field, i.e. quitting the job. I really encourage you to watch this little video. I've put a link there. It's a 3-minute video to make us understand or gain a deeper understanding, specifically with regards to gender equality and how this impacts our everyday life. Moving on then, we move on to our trait-based theories of motivation. And as mentioned, we will only be covering one theory under this section. We look at McClelland's theory of needs, which was developed in the early 1960s. McClelland first began working on this and looking specifically at the motive of achievement. If we look deeper, we see that this is linked to traits, and initially when research was being done on this theory, it was linked to the traits theory, the 5 model of personality, otherwise known as the Big 5. Later on, however, with shortcomings that were uncovered by McClelland, he realized that there were 2 other needs that he had to focus on, namely the needs of power and affiliation. This theory of needs can be very useful in managing teams to influence their goals based on their key motivators and how to harness them. It is important to mention that this specific theory does have limited practical effect and can be very expensive to apply in a work setting, but it is very helpful in understanding others. As I said, there are 3 elements to this theory of needs. Initially, as mentioned, McClellan started by looking for a need for achievement, which equates to the drive to excel and succeed according to a high set of standards. Further development resulted in identifying that people also have a need for affiliation, known or more commonly the desire for friendly and close interpersonal relationships, as well as a need for power or the need to make others behave in a way that they may not have otherwise. In a team setting then, it's important to understand what elements of these 3 parts of McClellan's theory of needs do different people have. If someone has a high need for achievement, they need to usually win at any cost. They must be at the top and usually need to receive credit. Someone who has a low need for achievement, on the other hand, often fears failure or tends to avoid responsibility. Have you found this in your group settings? Or have you maybe come across someone who has a need for affiliation? This is a need to be accepted by others, or usually requires someone with a high level of needs affiliation, demands high blind loyalty and harmony, and does not really tolerate disagreement, as opposed to someone who doesn't need to be affiliated to others too much and can often remain very aloof or maintain social distance. Someone with a high need for power, on the other hand, will defy control at any cost and usually exaggerates their own position or resources to have a higher need for power, whereas someone who is quite low on the need for power could have quite a dependent or subordinate nature. So where do you fall within these motivational theories? Where and how have you seen this in your own life? And how can you implement these things to help others that are in your circle around you? And so we've come to the end of this mini lecture series. I thank you for spending this time with me to understand motivation a bit deeper. If you do have any questions, I highly recommend that you contact myself or any member of the tutorial team, and we will look at how we can help you. As I've said before, I hope that you take these theories and these learnings to your own lives and ask, which of these theories resonated with me? What is it that I learned about myself, and how can I apply these in my everyday life, in my team setting, and one day when I'm in the working world? How can I implement these learnings within this course, and more so, how can I use what I've learned within my own team setting that I'm currently experiencing within this course? Thank you and good luck.